Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. We have got a lot to talk about. But first, I want you to please go over to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and meet Robert over there. And so many of you who are joining as we speak. And go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Please go to that page, everybody. The other page, everyone is so many of you are reaching out to me and you want to be my friend on the Santita Jackson page. I can't take any friends there. They're kicking everybody off, and that's not my doing. That's Facebook. So please go to Santita Jackson and Friends. And I'm on X at Santita J, at Santita J. And guess what? I'm also on Blue Sky. Hey, that's right, Santita Jackson .bsky.social. I'm coming into the 21st century, y'all. Watch out, watch out, watch out. Let us talk about the pardon of Hunter Biden. This was something that President Biden repeatedly said over the course of his term that he would not pardon his son. Well, he did do that as he is on his way out um, of office. Maybe he had not planned to be vacating office. Indeed, he did say, although he was going to be a transitional president, well, it turns out he, I guess, changed his mind somewhere along the way. And of course, we had all of the drama of the summer, and he is not where he thought he would be. He is on his way back into private life. That having been said, it's a new regime coming in, and well, I'm sure there are a lot of reasons that he decided to pardon his son. And many people are saying, look, one cannot help but understand a father who would do everything he could to protect his son, particularly from his political enemies. But then there's some other people who are saying that, wait a minute, maybe there's some hypocrisy here. And the greatest irony is that he authored the 1994 crime bill. Now, the crime bill touched on a lot of areas, including domestic violence. And there were some aspects of it that were good, but the crime bill is now infamous because of the mass incarceration era that it ushered in, particularly for Black people and Black and brown people generally. But it really disturbed the Black community in a profound way. And it was something that we're living with, not was, but it is something that we're living with today. So many families have been disrupted by the incarceration of their loved ones for crimes, while frightening and onerous then, they're shrugged off now. Now in Colorado, you can sell marijuana. You can sell these drugs and become wealthy. And no one blinks an eye. No one bats an eye. Now, 30 years ago, that was not the case, but today it is. And so let's talk about it. Let's talk about first the breadth and depth of this pardon. Indeed, the Washington Post reports the extraordinary breadth of Hunter Biden's pardon because it covers an 11-year period, everybody. An 11-year period, really. And it starts January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. That's nearly, according to this Washington Post report, and I quote, that's nearly an 11-year period during which any federal crime Hunter Biden might have committed, and there are none we are aware of, the reporter writes, beyond what has already been adjudicated, can't be prosecuted. It notably covers when he was appointed to the board of the Ukrainian energy company, Burisma, in 2014, all the way through Sunday, well after the crimes for which he was prosecuted. And many people have had a lot of questions, quite frankly, about what was happening with Burisma, because we're fighting a war over there. And are there conflicts of interest? Some people have asked that question, and when they have asked that question, they have been shouted down. But that having been said, we do now have something extraordinary. Now the Democrats are having to explain um, why President Biden went back on a promise. So what do you think about it, everybody? I want you to reach out and let me know. Chapearl, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. Robert, you were on. Shalom, my brother, you were on first. And Carol Sanders and Robert Williams. Andre, how you doing, everybody? Before we welcome the panel together, Robert says shalom, of course. Chapearl Wells said, bottom line, Biden protected his son because he knew Trump was coming after him. The entire government on both sides is not integrous, let's put it that way. And of course, Carol Sanders said, irony is watching criminals pardoned by Trump complain about the lack of justice. Robert Williams says, I don't have any problem with Joe Biden pardoning his son. And on and on and on and on it goes. But what about the people who were imprisoned because of the crime bill? That was something that Joe Biden, he went all in for that crime bill, and he wanted to be known for punishing those who were drug addicted. And isn't this ironic? So let's talk about it. What do you think about this? And what will be the political fallout? What could be the political fallout? Just what do you make of this? And tomorrow, what we will do is talk about what the crime bill actually did. We'll dig more deeply. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, legal analyst on Court TV, chair of Rainbow Push, former president of the National Bar Association, host of her own show on WAOK in Atlanta every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I can't wait to hear what your analysis will be. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, you have a very, very interesting approach to this as a community psychologist and significant experience that you've had in the prison system. Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Rainbow Push, and of course, senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland, one of our iconic Black churches. Theo Hardiman, who has a new book out on Amazon. What is it?
It's titled Interrupting Gun Violence, The Public Health Approach. You can purchase the book on Amazon. It's also a tax write-off. Everybody, I have it linked to my not-for-profit organization, Violence Interrupters, NFP, okay?
All right. But, we want to get it. We want to put it under people's Christmas trees because, indeed, you're being called all over the country and around the world to talk about interrupting violence. Wherever you go, people stop hurting each other. Representative Ron Reynolds from Texas. And of course, you are head of the Black Legislative Caucus there. And Attorney Daryl Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition Chair and host of his show along with Barbara Arnwine on WOL in DC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Now I can take a deep breath. And you know what? Everybody, briefly, let us know what you think as we open up this conversation. Hello, Shadow Star Ace from Reno, Nevada. How you doing? Carol, my sister from another mister out there in the hills of Beverly. Your birthday was Saturday. Everybody, let's give Carol Soskin our love. Come on, everybody. We love you, Carol. Ooh, she's one of our original morning stars. We love her. Well, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, you are on television analyzing this. As we do a round robin with everybody, Attorney Hoffler, what say you about this? Well, we'll get her back. Well, let me start with you, Attorney Daryl Jones. Your overview.
Well, Santita.
I don't know what happened. Oh, okay, wait.
There we go.
The lady is back.
Okay, CK.
Right. He was waiting for you to come back.
Santita, I'm so sorry. Just as you spoke, my phone, everything fell.
It's all right. We're here for it.
Well, first of all, Santita, this is an incredible topic. What do I think about this? I didn't understand why he was not considering pardoning his son from the beginning. So to the extent that there was any deception or any bias and political, double talk, it was from the beginning because it was completely predictable that if Donald Trump won the election, which he did, I have to actually say it out loud, which he did, that he made it clear that he was going to go after people he perceived as his enemy. And Hunter Biden was always at the top of the list of many in the Republican Party as the enemy. So you didn't have to go too far and exercise a lot of legal analyzing to reach a conclusion that Hunter Biden was going to be, just because of how Donald Trump perceived the Biden Justice Department went after him, that Hunter Biden would be the top of the list. Never mind that Donald Trump did pardon. One of the first people to pardon was Jared Kushner, his son-in-law's father, who was also a convicted felon. But, Donald Trump was a convicted felon. So he might just pardon himself. Putting that aside, I do think that there was some hypocrisy and less than, I don't think that President Biden thought through the issue clearly enough from the inception when he said that he wouldn't pardon his own son. I think at that point he envisioned that he would be that he would prevail in the presidential elections. And I think even when Vice President Kamala Harris stepped in, I think he envisioned that she would prevail. Or maybe his analysis didn't even go that far, but he thought that he would prevail, certainly. And he felt that the right thing to do would be to let the system continue. Now, many
But CK, hold on a minute. I want to engage you a bit, and I want to engage everybody here, because I never thought that he was not going to pardon his son. Okay, let's keep it 100. Okay.
Well, who did think he wasn't going to pardon his son?
No. He kept saying
I thought it was just disingenuous to say that.
I was like, stop it. I know you're going to pardon him. Okay, we know this, so don't not say that. Just stop saying that, because I think you're going to do it. And it's not whether Trump won or not. I thought he was going to do it. And you know what? People can understand that. I guess my rub, CK, is all the people that he aggressively sought to imprison 30 years ago.
No, absolutely right, Santita.
And they're languishing. And I'm like, are you going to give them a blanket pardon? Because they're drug addicted. Your son is drug addicted. That's one of the great ironies. And I think that Hunter Biden, I don't think that anyone should go to prison on drugs. No. Do I think that Hunter Biden deserves grace? Absolutely. But I think everybody does, CK.
I agree. Everybody deserves grace. That was one of the most, when we look down in history and we think about there's so many things that we can think about, and more to come that have impacted the Black community in terms of incarceration. That bill is going to go down in history as one of the most draconian and impactful in a negative way of our community. So if I were President Biden, I would go for broke right about now. I'd pardon my son, which is what he did, and I'd pardon every single other person at a minimum that is similarly situated to his son. And there are many people who fall in that category. Then I would pardon, I would commute sentences, I would do all that. Look, what's the downside? His legacy is already etched in stone. Where he served as our president, it's etched in stone. It is what it is. On my way out, I would go for broke and do all of those things. In addition to that, even though it's probably going to be reversed, I would pass every single executive order that I held back on. I don't know why that I held back on in these final days. Yeah, maybe the Trump administration, maybe the incoming president, Trump, is going to reverse that. But I would do that because I would want to show that I was and am the president of the people. Because right now, the Democratic Party is facing the label of being the party of the elite. I don't even know how that happened, but that is what the perception is of the Democratic
their
Party.
Policies by shifting to the right. That's how that happened. The DLC.
No, I mean, when I say I don't even know how that happened, I technically do know how that happened.
Yeah.
I lament that happened. And I also lament that we, me included, many of us were asleep at the wheel on that progression and didn't see it. And it took I'll leave out the adjectives to describe our incoming president. Our incoming president it took that and this election and us losing across the board. Let's just say it. The Democrats lost across the board in every way, or some people say every which way that they could. It took that for people to have really a wake-up call and say, wait a minute, what are we doing? But there were many people that said that before. We didn't need this kind of wake-up call, and I wish it hadn't been this dramatic. There were many people that said that this was going to happen, and indeed it did happen. But getting back to the main question, disingenuous of him. He knew good and well he was going to pardon his son. Just face it. He didn't even have to give an explanation. I mean, if he wanted to, he could have said, he's my son, that's it. But all this other stuff, I'm not going to, if I thus, then, therefore, nonsense. We know we're going to pardon your son, especially in this climate. We knew it then, we know it now, but let's go further, because he can pardon as many people as he sees fit.
Yeah, that's
Period. End of
power.
discussion. That's his legacy. So people similarly situated or even in worse situations that deserve it, I hope that they are submitting right now their letters, and if they haven't, they better, and get it to the Biden people, because I think now is the time for President Biden to try to level the playing field and to right that wrong, because that legislation many years ago has been the single most detrimental piece of legislation that I would articulate in my lifetime that has impacted our community unfairly and unjustly so.
And Amy Haddon Marsh is saying, free Leonard Peltier. Absolutely. This great indigenous American freedom fighter. Absolutely. There's some people who need to be freed. Absolutely. I'm with you, Amy. I'm with you on that. And well, let's get to you. I mean, it's so ironic, Attorney Darrell Jones. I mean, he authored the crime bill and pushed it so hard. Oh my gosh. And we look up and he was going after people who were using drugs. He wanted them to be in jail forever and ever and ever. But he wants grace for his son. Everybody wants grace. Oh, Amy, you don't have to thank me. This is Leonard Peltier's struggle is our struggle. We are one, my sister. That having been said, I mean, talk to me. I mean, what do you make of this?
It's clearly, when everything was going down with Hunter Biden, I had always been very clear that he was going to be pardoned by President Biden. And whatever words President Biden was going to say, whatever he's going to say was blah, 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 the Charlie Brown teacher type thing, because he was going to pardon his son. That was it. And I can't think of any man that loves his son that would have the ability to have his son be on the track of doing well and not be in prison and not exercise it. So, it's clearly what was going to happen there. So everything else was just political gamesmanship with regards to, whether or not he would whether or not he would pardon Hunter Biden. I think that the bigger issue, and I think that CK really hit on it, there are a lot of people that are similarly situated to Hunter Biden that are in the federal institutions that they too deserve to be pardoned. We got to remember that, when Joe Biden was running for president, he was talking about his policy for how he's going to end mass incarceration. That was part of his piece that he was laying out, that he had the strategy for, because he recognized now the wrongness of his ways from the 90s with the crime bill, and that mass incarceration was such a problem, and he was going to lay out these strategies for how to now undo what had been done from the mass incarcerations. None of it ever happened. Now that it's hitting home with him, with his son, he's pardoning. He's now seeing it, but it's only for that one person. So,
but Darrell, that is the rub for me. I mean, no, please continue. I mean, for me, that's what rankles, because we go to, at CK, we go to the prison, to the jail every Christmas to be with the people who've been forgotten. And Tio, we've been doing it. That's how we start our Christmas. We would open our presents, go to the jail, and then come home, open the rest of the presents, and have a big meal and have a great time. And you see all of these people who have so much to give, and anyone can take a wrong turn. But for the grace of God, any of us could be a convicted felon. Anybody. And I see no walking back on this. I mean, because, and we talked about this before we came on the air, CK, the crime bill was so cruel. The Higher Education Act of 1965 allowed you access to Pell Grants so you could get a college degree in prison. You got some of our brightest minds in prison. Some people who, for the first time, got some stability in their lives, got 3 meals a day, got heat, got cool. I mean, if the prison is run in a halfway decent way, it's cool in the summertime, warm in the winter. But they shut down the Pell Grant system, Daryl. So they would not allow. So they just wanted these people to go to jail and rot. Are you serious?
Yeah.
And I think he needs to answer for that.
And I agree with you. I mean, he absolutely does. Look, I know Todd Uri is going to hit on it when he speaks. You tell me how Hunter Biden gets a pardon, but Marilyn Mosby does not. Explain that one to
work?
you.
How
Can't
does that
explain
work?
that one.
I'm
You
supposed to be
can't
on
explain
mute.
that.
I'm sorry. Let me get on mute. I'm sorry. Let me mute myself.
No, girl, keep on. You're adding to the atmosphere. Come on. I love it.
I almost said a bad word as we.
Oh well, no, hey, I'm trying to say.
That's why I stopped myself. I was like, what kind of?
Tio and I have a
What
problem.
kind of sugity is that? What kind of sugity is that?
Yeah.
It's a tough neighborhood for progressives. So Tio and I get, we go from one station to the next, and they keep pushing.
That's right.
That's all right. That's
What kind of
okay.
sugity?
So
Sugity.
hush, sweet Charlotte.
Okay, sugary. I'll just say it this way. What kind of sugary is that? How about that?
Oh, okay. Then that's what you're sounding like, Todd Uri. Okay, Pastor Uri. Oh boy, I'm sorry, Daryl. We interrupted you. Yes.
But it's all the internal inconsistency that comes out of these policies and these decisions that are being made. Think about this one. He comes to power, right? He comes to the presidency. He has all the power of the presidency. He's been responsible because of that criminal of the 90s criminal act, right? Of that bill of taking away the voting rights of many of those people that have fallen subject to the crime bill. Did he then take the step of saying, I'm going to use an executive order and put voting rights back in place? Did he take the lead in having voting rights restored for those that were formerly convicted of felonies? No, he didn't do that. None of that happened. It looks so purely political for him to simply say, this is my son, so now I see it. I'm going to go ahead and give him the pardon. Everybody else be darned, right? Anybody else? Nobody else is getting it.
But does it look political? Does it look political, personal, or elitist? I mean,
What was the last one?
Elitist.
Mm.
All of the above. It was political, it was personal, and it was elitist. It's all of the above.
I mean, because I like my brother followed up with, you know what? Mass incarceration, my watch, my idea. My idea. This didn't quite work out. Renee, let me not put words in his mouth, because he said he was going to abolish the federal death penalty. Maybe he still will, or maybe his crime bill was who he really was, and or who he really is, and I think that's what it is now. Yeah, okay, I'm getting an amen from the great man from the great state, or the nation state of Texas, depending upon who I'm talking to. You know how you all are in Texas. It's your own sovereign nation. But I mean, so what do you make of this?
Well, Santita, first of all, I think that CK came out swinging, and I'm with her sentiments. When I first heard it, I was saying, well, it's about dang time. As a father of a son, I know unequivocally I would do the same thing. But this is when President Biden was trying to be all holier than thou. Oh, this is taking the moral high ground. No, of course I wouldn't do it. I mean, I was like, really? Like, if that was my son, I know I would. So it just wasn't even real. It wasn't authentic. It was trying to be, the morality police. And then the American people showed you with the election of Trump that, so anyway, the point I make it is the go cry me a river, all of those who are trying to denigrate and condemn President Biden for the pardon of Hunter Biden, his son. The hypocrisy is running rampant. You can't have a legitimate conversation with me when you have a 34 convicted felon that you supported unequivocally for president, right? And then it's so much more who will never be held accountable. So I think that to CK's point and to Daryl's point, that President Biden needs to lean in. He needs to grow more of what he did yesterday, and he needs to finish what he started. Marilyn Mosby, y'all stole my thunder. I was going to say that should be a pardon. There should be a pardon for so many other folks that aren't white privilege, that don't have the luxury of high-powered attorneys or very influential figures, that they get these kind of sweetheart deals. I think that President Biden needs to lean in and do this on his way out. I think he needs to, even if the executive orders will be litigated or overturned, go out swinging, go out. I said this, y'all may disagree with me, but I think after this Hunter Biden and everything, the pardons, he should then resign and allow Kamala to finish out whatever little term there is left, and she will be able to serve as president for a little bit. So I'm like, go big, because guess what, Santita, President-elect Trump is going to go big. He's already went big, right, with his loyalists and his nominees. He's done the shock and awe. And Michelle, she corrected us when she said, "Hey, when they go low, we go high." She said, "No. We done with that. This is the remix version. This is 2.0." And so I think it's time for us to stop being soft, stop being weak, that we have to lead and we have to govern and we have to do it, in the words of Malcolm X, by any means necessary. So let's go, President Biden. Let's go. I'm with you 100%. There ain't nothing they can do to you. And I think that you can go out with a bang, and not just for Hunter Biden, but for so many others that are Black and brown that have been disenfranchised. And there's so many disparities for brothers that are locked up. Go out and help them on your way out as well.
Well, I mean, first of all, he did what he wanted to do for them brothers. He locked them up.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, no, hold on. We keep acting like he's someone that he is not. We keep acting like he's someone else. Anita Hill would not even accept his apology because she knows firsthand how he jammed her and gave us Clarence Thomas. At some point, we need to stop trying to. It's just like, honey, trying to refashion a man, CK. And look, I know you. Hey, I just said not too long ago, look, honey, all we're trying to do is get to know each other. That's it. I'm not trying to change you. I'm not the police. I'm not going to chase you down. I'm not going to do all that. Because at this point in history, yeah, Dr. Latrice, and you can examine me all you want. All I want to know is who you are. And all you need to do is find out who I am. All we have to do is find out, what did my father say he wanted me? He said, look, 3 requirements for a man: drug-free, hardworking, capacity for loyalty. I said, that's it? He said, if you get that, you got a lot, honey. He said, after that is what you can tolerate. All you're trying to do is find out whose key fits your lock. That's it. He said, and then after that, you got to work it out, because ain't nothing perfect. You ain't perfect. So, I mean, I'm all right with that. But I don't think we should, make him into, I mean, I want an apology for all these people who've been in prison, Representative Reynolds and Attorney Jones. I want them to be restored.
Amen.
I mean, forget all this other stuff. A white man can run with 34 convictions. Absolutely. They should have left that alone anyway, because all they did was blow him up and put him back in office. So let's let that go. I'm over that. I'm talking about what happened on his watch 30 years ago that has not been rectified.
I forgot this, Santita. He should pass an executive order banning the box. Ban the box with an executive order. How about that, CK?
And let them free. If they're going to free everybody from January 6th, free these people.
All of this. But he should have done that way before. But I agree. Way before. Why? Because when he realized he was now I can understand he was saying, well, while Kamala's running, I don't want to upset her. But the nanosecond that she lost that election, the nanosecond, He should have had everything lined up with his people as a plan B. And by now, we would have thousands of people. Because all those people involved with January 6th, they're coming out of jail. Man, I can't imagine the atmosphere in jail right now where they are. Jubilant. Probably, I mean, who knows what's going on? Everybody happy.
But all of that. But you know what? That was his promise. That was his intention. And I'm saying this has been his intention, and we need to call him on it, on his way out the door. Do you know how many Black families have been disrupted by this?
Yeah.
I mean, this was like a bomb that was dropped in our community, and it was. You see it, T.O. That's why you're sitting there trying to interrupt the violence. I mean, and many of us, you know, Dr. Lutrice, I'm going to get to you in a hot second. We've been filled with so much pain and rage. We've taken it out on each other.
Yeah, a lot of unaddressed trauma that people have experienced in their lifetimes. But here with Biden, I don't really knock him for giving his son a pardon, because what Biden did, he looked at the landscape. You know, you see who you have coming in as far as the next administration.
And they're coming for your child. I get it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
that's what happened right there. Now, the only problem is once again, Rep. Reynolds, Democrats once again not just being honest up front. I'm talking about when Biden said he would not pardon his son on 2 or 3 different occasions, and he did it anyway. I have no problem with the decision he made. It's just that we have to Democrats have to stop taking these type of hits, because it's not making them look too good in public opinion, to a degree, right? So what Biden did, in my mind, said, Santita, was say, you know what, Donald Trump is coming in. This guy's bringing a band of people that have all kinds of assorted issues in their background, including himself. So Biden said, what the hell? I might as well pardon my son as well. Now, someone said on your live here that the reason he pardoned his son now because he did not want to do it during the election, right? Because it would have been a little more controversial then. So he waited until after the election to make that decision. So that's the way I'm reading it right now. So what the hell? What does he have to lose? Zero. He's not going to run for president again. And I agree with you there when someone talks about why don't he just step aside and allow Mrs. Harris to become the president for this last 30 days, whatever the case may be. I think that would be exceptional for the people in America. It would redeem her to a degree as well. She would serve as the first female president here in the United States. It would be like groundbreaking.
And then
right?
She could pardon all the people. Did I say that?
He can do it. Yeah, she could do it,
happen.
yes. Now, this might be a little lightweight controversy. We've been pushing the pardon for Larry Hoover for a long time. Jeff Ford is more of a political prisoner. People may have their pros and cons about these two individuals, but I would love to see those individuals get some traction with getting a pardon as well. It just depends on how the public would view it or whatever the case may be.
The public, T.O.,
yeah.
they have freed some out and out criminals. They have pardoned them.
Right.
So don't leave Larry Hoover and all these folks alone. They are no more criminal than anybody else. These are Black men who figured out the system and they made it work. Now I'm not down with being a criminal and all of that, but dropping bombs on people as we do, that's criminal. These are war crimes.
Right.
And our presidents commit them. So stop.
That's what I'm talking. Yeah, no doubt. That's why I said
I said it, CK.
Guys.
I'll add more to it before I take it back. So
Yeah.
I mean, all these people with not even questionable backgrounds, you know who they are, and they have been pardoned. So look, pardon these folks. But
that's all I'm saying. Right.
These thousands of people whose lives have been jammed because they were on drugs or they sold a little bit of drugs. Are you kidding me? And I say that as someone who's not even taking a puff off of a marijuana cigarette. But I don't think you should be. I don't think you should be in prison for it. This is ridiculous. Well, and if he's gonna pardon his son,
right. I agree with you, Santita. I say this as well. Trump, you're gonna have a pardon oasis when Trump gets in office, because he's gonna pardon everybody that was involved in whatever they was involved in, as far as the insurrection, the riot on January the 6th. You'll see. So therefore, Biden, I think, made the right decision. Just be honest with people. That's the only problem we have with any politician. Too many people go back on their word.
That Trump's going to do. He's going to pardon a bunch of Black people. You watch and see.
And
I believe that
what?
Too.
And guess what? I accept it all. How about that?
Yes.
I ain't mad at him. It's the political game. And guess what? Biden is still not going to pardon a lot of Black people. Hello?
I don't think he will.
Pardon these people whose lives you jammed in the name of law and order. But Dr. LaShawn Latrice, Open your mic up. You all
Hello.
open up your mics, please.
I am enjoying this conversation because I think this is just what we expected to happen. Not only that, but I think it's just it reminds me of like the history, how Scooter Libby was pardoned when President Bush was in office, and everybody made a big stink of it. But it just shows like the arrogance of the position. It's like in one breath, people are like, yeah, that's his son, he should pardon him. But on the other side, what about all these other people that deserve to be pardoned? How dare you run? And the first thing you do, you know, he has a bad record when it comes to pardoning people, let alone Black people. So this right here is going to go down in history. And that's why it made all the other presidents look bad. Trump is going to make them look even worse, because he's going to pardon his people and some other people. And he's going to pardon them other people because he's in the business of making everybody mad. He likes to be controversial. And what I think,
but he's also, but wait, Dr. Latrice, he's also transactional.
Absolutely.
That first step act.
I love it. I love it. I can't. I'm so happy because when we see these things where someone's going to pardon their son, don't have any compassion. The person doesn't have any compassion for these people that have real heartthrob stories, you know, real stories, why they should be pardoned. And I was incarcerated. I watched 4 people die who could have been pardoned. They could have been given a medical release and been pardoned and go home. Instead, they died in prison. Mm-hmm. So it's so many other things that happen around this whole component of being pardoned. And I think that it's taken too lightly by the Democratic administration. And I think that when it comes down to whether or not someone deserves, or they've done their time, or, you know, some things have happened that have given them extenuating circumstances, I just think that the elitist overlooks all of that. Like you said, we're going to author this crime bill. We're going to sit you all down over there. You're less than I. My son is so valuable. He does not deserve to be inside a prison. So we're going to hurry up and remove that label off of him. But it really doesn't make them any better from anyone else, because everyone knows if you want to find the real criminals, you follow the trail of the money and the power. And that's where it's at anyway. So at the end of the day, this is something that people are just going to have to accept, that this is a party that's associated with things like that. So I'm here for whatever is going to happen in the next 2 months, where we're going to watch thousands of people be pardoned, and a lot of them are going to look just like me.
Wow.
So do you think that's a good thing? I mean, just given your experience in prison, is that something that you?
Yes, I'm waiting to put my pardon paperwork in until Trump get in office. I'm very serious.
That'll work.
And I'm going to do about 6 more people. We intentionally waited to, if Trump gets elected, we're going to put our pardon paperwork in, because we knew if we put that paperwork in under Biden's administration, it would just be passed off. And I'm at home free. So there's a lot of people behind the walls under some very strange circumstances.
And you are a doctor. I mean, you are a psychologist. What do you think when you see that people are not allowed to get the Pell Grants to pay for college while they're incarcerated? How does that make you feel?
I feel really bad, because that's one of the experiences that I can really speak to. I taught classes when I was incarcerated, and many of the women were not allowed to take the classes because you have to be within so many years of your sentence ending before they allow you to be incarcerated and before they allow you to be educated. So many of those women sat idly for 15, 20 years before they could ever take a GED class. And that's disgusting. You know, and this is the United States at its finest. They had people in there tearing books up, all kind of stuff, just because they wanted to collect as much money as they can for the new budget. So you had to sit there and idly rip up brand new books, things like that, just so you can show an empty cabinet. And then when I refused, then I was sent to the warden. But it was okay, because I wasn't tearing no books up. I said, send them to the men's prison down a few miles down, and they should be able to benefit from it. But to tear up books just because you're trying to bring some money into the prison that you're going to misuse and misappropriate, it makes no sense anyway.
Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary? What say you? You've heard all of us say what we've had to say. And I want to, let's just jump on in. Indeed, Carol and Robert and so many of you have a lot to say, everybody. Please like and share the show. Like and share the show. Carol Sanders said, I spent 4 months in jail. 324 to 724. Okay. This past year for a protest trying to get local authorities to comply with the mask executive order back in May 2020, accused of multiple felonies and found guilty of a single misdemeanor, fleeing at trial, then contempt of court at sentencing. A pardon would have been nice. I mean, you got a record, I mean, for that? That's crazy. Reverend Dr. Todd Urey.
One, you expect nothing from a pig but a grunt.
Mm.
They only do what they do. So the issue has never been would he, but when would he actually execute it? The pardon is not a shock. The power is absolute in the hands of the president. I think it would be a bit aspirational and maybe politically naive for us to think that he would not use that power on the way out the door, particularly after the way the party basically assaulted him to get out of the way. This is the proverbial, he's giving the Democratic Party the middle finger and giving the rest of us his behind. And he's giving
Okay,
his son
stop.
freedom.
Wait, everybody, hold on. Moment of silence. What did you just say?
He's giving the Democratic Party the middle finger and giving the rest of us his behind.
Oh, okay.
The truth of the matter is, few of us really have an appreciation for just how extreme and extensive the power of the president as the executive really is. And add to it now, you have the immunity provision that has come by the last term of the Supreme Court to reinforce it. I do think that the argument should be that we lean into all of those persons who are desirous of and even um, uh, deserve a pardon. You mentioned Marilyn Mosby, but the list is long. The other thing is while we're looking at 30 years since the crime bill was passed, let's be real clear that the transaction, if you go back and look at the vote, it was mostly Democrats that passed the crime bill.
Mm-hmm. And wait
You
a minute, and
maybe had,
Black people supported its passage.
Right.
well,
And the Congressional
they,
Black Caucus members, if we're gonna be real, let's just be real. The CBC members at that time also supported it. So we can't
absolutely.
just say, I mean, look, it is what it is. President Biden was a strong proponent of it, but I just think if
But we
we're
were,
going to
but
be
we were
completely
wrong.
transparent, yeah,
We,
if we're
we
But we were
transparent,
wrong,
let's
and
just
those
call it
of
what
us,
it was.
and
but
those
but
of us who said we were wrong
Yeah.
were excoriated by the Black community. I know
but
because we were part of that crew. We said this is not the thing to do. Like we said, NAFTA's not the thing to do.
Well,
And
NAFTA, look, both parties had a role. When we talk about NAFTA, it was originally introduced by Bush 41. It ended up being walked over by Clinton when he took office. When we look at the crime bill, they would argue it was bipartisan, though the majority of those who voted for it were Democrats. Included in that crime bill was the authority of the federal government to actually investigate and hold local police departments accountable. And so the issue has always been how do you get away with taking a little bit of arsenic without coming away poisoned and dead? They sweeten these things up, then they leverage them to their own interest and benefit. What we're getting is a real-time lesson about how politics works. And so the name of the game is self-interest. The president has exerted and exacted his self-interest on behalf of his family using the power he has gotten only by way of the benefit of Black folk who saved him in the South Carolina primary. And so the real question is, with the time that's remaining, how many other pardons do we need him to sign? Let's put them in front of him by name. And we make sure that even if he leaves office and does not follow through, it's the Democratic Party that's going to have to pay the consequence. And that's where I don't think we quite have the political courage to make sure
Exactly.
that there's widespread blanket accountability, because the Congressional Black Caucus unanimously, to the exclusion of Tim Scott, is all Democrats. And so if we're not going to look in the mirror and if we're not going to hold accountability to be the standard, then what we're doing is we're blaming the president for what is ours to also own, that we're okay with locking up Black and brown bodies without cause, for unreasonable terms, and with no accountability or redemption ever being put in front of them and all the rest of us. He too has given us and the middle finger. It's not just the party. He's given us the bird and he's given us his butt. And between those two, Hunter Biden will never go to prison for Burisma or anything else. And the rest of us have to figure it out. And so that is pretty much all I got.
Well, Carol Suskin said, I love Todd. And Jewel says, tremendous panel. Renee said, Biden has been giving us the finger for decades. Many Blacks disagreed with it, including Reverend Jackson. Yeah, and Black folks had Reverend on a platter for that. For how dare you disagree with the first Black president, Bill Clinton. You remember that? Hello, everybody. Do you remember that? Okay. Yeah. I'm just saying, we've made some mistakes too. I'm not saying, let me just say this, y'all. I am not saying that Hunter Biden does not deserve a pardon. I'm not saying that I blame his father for protecting his son. The man is 82, 83 years of age. He knows he doesn't have much more time. He's going to do everything he can to give his son comfort. He knows how vulnerable he is. When I was growing up, my father and mother often said, look, you will inherit our friends as well as our enemies, neither of whom you've earned. But I'm most concerned about you and how you handle our enemies, because they're coming for you. They're coming for you. So I need you to be at the top in school. I need you to do that because I need you to do it for you. Because when these people come for you, not only do I need you to have a developed mind, when the press comes to find out if you got special treatment to get into the school, when they look at your records as they did to me here, they will say, oh, no. Deserving, we got to back up off of you. Okay? So I get that. What bothers me right now, everybody, is the hypocrisy. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, let me come to you because you're a legislator here, the legislator here. When I think of what the crime bill, what it did to vulnerable communities, and particularly to Black people, it is an abomination. I'm saying, while on others thou art calling, do not pass me by, O Reverend Dr. Todd Hearing. Oh, I'm so glad when Jesus was passing out his blessings, he included me. Would you please do me a favor? And while you are all the compassion you're giving to your son, these people got addicted to crack. The Black folks who got addicted to crack. Oh, and the white folks who got addicted to fentanyl. You know, because they have a sickness. We just a problem. Mm-hmm. Would someone please give me something to hold on to, Representative Reynolds?
Well, Santita, you're absolutely right. In fact, when I was in law school, one of the papers, the studies I did was the 100-to-1 disparity between the sentencing guidelines for powder versus crack cocaine. So white and more affluent people were doing powder cocaine, and the Black people were doing the crack cocaine. And it was the same derivative in terms of substance, right? And matter of fact, the cocaine was just pure, it was actually more pure, more potent. The crack was cheaper, but most of the people who did crack, of course, were Black and poor people, poor whites. They got it was 100-to-1 in terms of the ratio, in terms of the guidelines. So it was built in the sentencing guidelines that was mandatory, where judges didn't even have discretion to lower or go below the sentencing guidelines. It was a mandatory minimum. And so, yes, we've seen these disparities that exist. They've broken families. They've created more people who look like me and Tio and Daryl and Pastor Yuri that are locked up to this day in prison that has ruined lives and ruined careers. And so, yes, this war on crime, this war on drugs, we were the face of it, right? So I do believe that it was a mistake. Hindsight is 2020, and I think that the criticism is fair, although at the time that they passed it, they may have been well intentioned. I'm talking about the Congressional Black Caucus. I know sometimes as legislators, we pass a bill and then we find out later that there were unintended consequences. That's basically the language when the bill does more harm than good.
Well,
That you didn't see a
hold that
foreseeable outcome.
Hold that thought, because I have one more minute left here, and I'm going to continue after this 1 minute because I have to break for the show itself. Just very quickly, as in 1 minute, as a legislator, when your community are calling you to pass legislation or to vote up on legislation that you know is a problem, will be a problem down the line, what do you do?
I think you have to be a statesman. You have to have the conscience to say, no, this is not in the best interest of my constituents, and you have to vote no. If you are believe in good conscience based on data and evidence that the bill would be more problematic, then you don't do it. The problem quickly, Santita, is too many people do it. Too many people take the politically expedient route, whether it's lobbyists, whether it's AIPAC, whether it's leadership saying, no, this is where you need to vote. And we have to be statesmen and more conscious and be willing to stand on principle as opposed to what's politically expedient. Unfortunately, in politics, there are too many cowards that just do whatever is convenient and popular at the time, not necessarily what's right. Very few of them took a stance that came out against a ceasefire, even though many of them knew they should, because it wasn't the politically expedient thing to do because of AIPAC. So that is where we need more statesmen with conviction that are willing to stand on principle.
Renee Criswell's put it this way: so many of the boys who went to grammar school with me in Lawndale, which is in Chicago on the west side, ended up in prison or hooked on drugs. The same thing can be said of boys my children's age. We need help and fairness, not traps. And that really is all that I'm talking about here. That's what we're talking about tonight. And so I want you all to stay with us. And we're going to continue this conversation here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, the Santita Jackson Show. Stay right here. We're talking about the Hunter Biden pardon. It's not that it was unexpected, everybody. All I'm saying, really, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Court TV legal analyst, chair of Rainbow Push, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, formerly incarcerated, Dr. Latrice, who's a community psychologist, who's seen the impact that this has had on the community. Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Esquire, brilliant theologian, pastor, and lawyer. T.O. Hardeman, your book on Amazon is?
You're Interrupting Gun Violence, the Public Health Approach on Amazon,
Right,
T.O. Hardeman.
And he's on his way to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in a couple of days. So, hey, watch out, everybody.
Yeah,
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds and Attorney Daryl Jones on WOL every Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Of course, on WAOK at 11 o'clock every Tuesday, Eastern Standard Time. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, stay right here, everybody. I just want some fairness. The compassion that we give to one, I think we need to give to all. That's all I'm saying. I would not say that Hunter Biden does not deserve a pardon. But pardon me, so does some nameless, faceless child, because we're all God's children. Nobody sits high, looks low. Everybody deserves a break today. And I'm not talking about at some fast food restaurant. People need to be understood. They do. Think about that. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, the Santita Jackson Show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking about the Hunter Biden pardon. What do you think about that? A lot of you have a lot of opinions about this. Carol Soskin's given us a hand clap, several hand claps, and so is Jewel. I love it. I love it. And everyone wish Carol Soskin a happy birthday. Come on, gang. Come on, let's give it to her. Come on. But you can't do it on mute. Wait a minute. You can do better than that. Come on. Come on. What?
Woo!
Happy birthday.
Dry.
Happy birthday.
I mean, y'all are so dry. It's embarrassing. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, it's Santita Jackson. And of course, we are on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I'm now on Blue Sky, everybody. I'm still on X at Santita J, but on Blue Sky, I'm at Santita Jackson. I'm getting followers too. I can't believe it. Oh, I did a selfie, CK, as my picture. Like that. It looks crazy. I'll change it eventually. But you know, I got to do what I have to do. But at santitajackson.bsky.social. And of course, Santita Jackson and Friends. That is my Facebook page, everybody. Please go there and request my friendship because they're kicking you off of Santita Jackson. Just add and friends. Just do that. But let's talk about the Hunter Biden pardon, which is sweeping. It covers 11 years. Why the 11 years? What happened here? We do know that on his way out of office, his father having said down through the years that he would not pardon his son. Well, he did pardon his son. Are you really surprised though? I think it would have really helped him a lot if he had said, yeah, I'm thinking about it, or yeah, I'm going to do that. We saw that T.O. Hardeman, having grown up in Chicago, our mayor, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, Richard Daley, the boss, right? The iconic mayor who invented the Chicago Democratic machine. His son, who became mayor, had a hard time passing the bar, attorney C.K. Hoffler. He could not pass it to save his life. He finally did pass it, and it made headlines in Chicago. And someone asked him if he helped his son. He said, of course I helped my son. I love it. Look, all I'm saying is just keep it 100, everybody. That's all you have to do.
That's it.
What do you think about this? Because the crime bill, Reverend Dr. Yuri, it had an absolutely, it was so damaging. And experts admit that now. They concede that now. Reverend Dr. Yuri, as I was researching this show, one of the things Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, head of the Black Legislative Caucus in Texas, Attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, the chair, and of course, host of his own show on WOL in DC, 12 noon every Tuesday, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, legal analyst on Court TV, and chair of Rainbow Push, former president of the National Bar Association, host of her own show on WAOK. She had us all on there the other week. Had a great time. Of course, at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. T.O. Hardeman, who's got a new book, and the title of the book is?
The title of my book is Interrupting Gun Violence, the Public Health Approach. It's on Amazon right here. It's a good read for everybody, and I appreciate any support we can get, okay?
All right.
I host my show on WVON every Sunday morning from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., the iconic WVON, Black Talk Radio. So, yeah, you can catch me on WVON every Sunday.
Every Sunday, right before Keep Hope Alive. Love it. And Dr. LaShawn Latrice, who shared with us, I mean, she has been incarcerated, but she is now also, or should I say, and in addition to that experience, because that's important, she is a community psychologist. And you never know the path that people travel, Dr. LaShawn Latrice. God uses us in so many ways, and I'm so glad that you're on this panel tonight to help us to really talk about this. But I want to go to you, Reverend Dr. Yuri. What do you make of this? Because now a lot of Democrats are up in arms. They're saying, oh, he should have said that he was going to pardon his son. And I guess one of the things that really kind of gets to me is when I found out, CK, that the Higher Education Act of 1965 facilitated Pell Grants to people who were incarcerated. One only need think of, for example, Malcolm X, who had access to these books, and think of, the brilliance that he didn't know that he had. that was cultivated in prison, not say in a formal academy, but he had access to the books, and he read every book in the library. And my goodness, look at how he changed the world. But now under the crime bill of 1994, that was ended. Reverend Dr. Yuri, you cannot get a Pell Grant if you're on death row now, it was scaled back, but they completely blocked people who were incarcerated from getting a Pell Grant, from getting a college education. I mean, this bill was horrible, and all I'm asking is for the president to say, you know what, the compassion that I want for my son, I want for all of these people who were incarcerated, Reverend Dr. Yuri. I don't think that's too much to ask. I really don't.
As Franklin Roosevelt told A. Philip Randolph, make me. Right. Part of this is cultivating and organizing the demands so that your demands cannot be ignored.
Hmm.
So the real question is not whether or not this president is going to somehow come away with some moral awakening in these last 70 so days or 50 days now, right? We're December 2, you got to January 20th. Um, I don't think I don't think that's going to happen. He's not going to have a conversion experience late in the midnight hour and wake up in the morning and hold a press conference in the Oval Office and saying, I had a visitation from the Lord last night. That's not happening. Now, if there is pushback, and I mean serious pushback, there's a meeting this week at the Justice Department to talk about 30 years since that crime bill was passed, particularly the section that leads to investigations of police departments. Why is that important? Because in this transition, right, there are issues about the pardoning, but the other issues are about the permanence of the system. This transition reminds us of what happens when President Obama was leaving and Jeff Sessions was coming in to be the attorney general. In Baltimore, there was a significant concern that the Justice Department under Sessions would withdraw from the consent decree process that would transform the constitutional policing needs of Baltimore City. It is the same concern that they have in Louisville right now that Craig Greenberg, who is the Democratic elected mayor of Louisville, is slow walking the signing off on the consent decree because I think subtly there's an expectation and a hope that a Trump presidency will swing back to pro policing where the consent decree enforcement would just go away. I think we have to be very clear-eyed about what these issues are. And while the pardon is offensive, and it is certainly, yeah, I don't understand why folks are shocked because I'm trying to figure out who would not pardon their son. It's not surprising. The question is, who else you gonna pardon, and what else are you gonna do to make sure that the government follows through before the new administration takes hold at 12 noon? Because at 12:01, Donald Trump and his magic marker are going to start signing stuff and putting it up and holding up the signature for the world to see where it's going to come at the harm and the cost. And so on one hand, yes, we have to hold this Democratic Party accountable. We have to make sure that we give cover to the legislative black caucus so they can't ignore our voices. But the real question is not, well, how are we going to challenge the president? It's a done deal. Hunter is pardoned. But who else is on that list? I would even add, though not even asked, but I think there is one former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. who should be pardoned. Why?
Yeah.
Because he was mistreated in the process. And there's another Illinois congressman who was also found to have done similar things. And what did he get? He got the, if you pay it back, we'll drop the charges. The system has not been fair. The system has not played evenly. The system is not doing what we would want it to do. Why? Because the system is still working by design. And that design is against the interests of folk who look like all of us on these screens. Special lighting at all. I don't care. I got low light. CK got good big light. Santita got good light. The rest of us, if we all in the light, turn the lights out, we still black in America. It is still that rule. And unless we're going to put that out there and make the demands for these last 50 days, then we get what we get when Trump comes to office, because I promise you, if he's getting rid of the Department of Education and all of those federal enforcement mechanisms that were designed to protect the civil rights of people who look like us, then you know what? We get what we deserve. And so now's the time to figure out now what did Biden do? What we gonna do? That's the
Well,
question.
You're right there with Carol. You and Carol Sanders are on the same page. She said, "What if y'all got a few thousand? Thank you, Carol. People, or maybe more, to write a letter." You're right. We need to cultivate the environment. Indeed, that is something that Reverend Jackson has taught us. He's like, you need to get out here and make things happen. I mean, because no one here is saying that. Wait a minute, pardoning your son. I never ever thought that he wouldn't pardon his son. Quite frankly, I thought a lot of the back and forth that we did not see was about him cutting a deal to save his child. Because we know that there are backroom deals in politics. We saw it happen. We saw it writ large when you saw him write some letter that was not even a White House stationery. I'm leaving.
Well,
and then, and guess what? Now I'm coming back. No, I'm going to have Kamala.
Santita, I'm going to have to run. Unfortunately, I've got to run to another meeting. My closing thought, there's nothing new here. The hope and the pressure point that we need to the extent that we can right now, every day, every minute between now and when Donald Trump gets into office, is to get other people pardoned, period, into discussion, and get President Biden to sign as many executive orders doing everything he should have done, could have done, we want him to do now. And finally, having him step aside so Kamala can be president, even if it's for a day, a week, or whatever period of time. That would be the right thing to do. Okay. All right. Yeah. Bye-bye, everyone. I have to run, but this has been great.
Thank you for the mic drop. That's it. Okay.
Good light and all. Good light and all. It works for you, girl. It works for you.
Well, the joke is she didn't need light. She just needed a light behind her. Love you.
You know what else told say that? Did she just say, okay, bye-bye, Santita?
Bye. Santita, also, this may be an opportunity for the Democrats to stop trying to be politically correct all the time. I don't think they've learned their lesson as of yet. Donald Trump broke the door down with not being politically correct. The Democrats have to take a lesson from Donald Trump. I don't think this would ever happen again in our lifetime for a president like Trump to win the way he did with all the issues he had. But at the same time, let's pardon all those people that were locked up during the crime bill. But like for example, a lot of African American leaders, political leaders, actually sign on to that bill as well. So there's no doubt about it. But we have to go back in history just a little bit here, right? After slavery, there was a book titled The Negro Question, What to Do with African American People After Slavery. And so we must admit the fact that the FBI, CIA, during the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, our communities were saturated with these drugs out here, right? So that's why they talk about during the Nixon era, the failed war on drugs that led to the prison industrial complex. So when it talks about the history of what happened to African American people, all of it, goes hand in hand. The country should admit the fact that the drugs were pushed in Black communities first and foremost to fund the Nicaraguan war, and that was revealed and exposed by Gary Webb, the writer out of California. They say he committed suicide by shooting himself in the head twice. You can read through the message there, right? But the reality, right. But the moral of the story is this here: our community has been, we've battled we had to jump over a lot of hurdles to get where we are today. But make no mistakes, the COINTELPRO program was all about dismantling Black leadership during an era when Black leadership was strong as it could possibly be. I mean, you had some very, very strong leaders during that, turbulent time. So here we are today in the year 2024. The country has a lot of cleaning up to do. You have to admit when you made mistakes like the crime bill, admit the fact that there was some real foul play with the, distributing all those drugs in the African-American community. Wait,
but hold on, no, stay right there. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking, Reverend Dr. Yeary and Dr. LaShawn Latrice, we keep saying it was a mistake. I don't think he thinks it was. When I saw him making the art, arch those eyebrows right up to the ceiling, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, because I think he felt and I still think he feels today he did the right thing. He's not apologized one time.
He don't care. We're wrestling over whether or not it's the right thing. It's not even a question to him. It's done.
Wait a minute. And yeah, I did it. And let me tell you why I did it. And I'm saying that we keep I'm with you, Reverend Dr. Yeary. I'm like, enough already. I'm not trying to get him to like me and feel compelled. I don't care how he feels.
He did not call a church meeting to decide what he was going to do.
Come on now.
He did it We got the news alert. We didn't get no warning. Ain't nobody tell us he was going to consider it.
No,
When
some
he,
of us heard him make the argument, and black folks were so excited about Bill Clinton because he played a saxophone and he was rolling with the black
on
folks. They
on
did all
Arsenio
that.
Hall, he played the
Yep,
sax on Arsenio Hall.
come
Don't
on
forget
now.
that.
And they told Jesse Jackson, "Shut up and sit down. Shut up, sit down. Shut up, sit down." I'm not talking about my daddy, y'all. I'm talking about some real mistakes and some miscalculations, Reverend Dr. Yuri, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, that we have made. That we have made. There's some people that we looked at and we trusted them more than we trusted people who've worked and walked with us and who have given their lives for us and were willing to give up their lives for us. We've done that. And I'm saying now, I don't care how he feels, Reverend Dr. Yuri. I think you're making the point. We have some political space in the next 50 days or so. If you're going to pardon your son, Democrats, and maybe he's mad with the party right now. Oh yeah, he doesn't care where the party goes. I can tell you that right now. His wife was wearing a red outfit the day that she voted for the presidency. They are nice and warm about the Democrats. It's very clear. Okay, I got it. I'm not mad. They're human. That having been said, the Democrats will be feeling this, and they should. If they don't push and make him, we need to push and make him pardon these folks who he incarcerated in massive numbers. Oh, you got to unmute, Dr. Latrice.
I said absolutely yes. I'm saying the exact same thing. The same energy that was used to have compassion for his son, he needs to have compassion to reverse the errors that were made that were intentional. Because as T.O. said before he got off, we have to remember a lot of these crimes that were perpetuated and these people were in prison for, a lot of it was intentionally inflicted upon our communities. And when we think about the history behind drugs and the war on drugs and the war on drugs, when we think about the history of it, we know that it was intentionally designed to neutralize us. And because the Democratic Party has been blind and arrogant and afraid to speak up, they have not represented us in a very well way. They definitely have not represented those of us who have been impacted by the cycle of mass incarceration. And oftentimes our voices are silenced when we try to expose what's going on behind those walls. And so I am all for holding some accountability to those Democratic political officials who need to be standing up and representing the people who have been on these lists for years and years and years. There's nowhere in the world this should go unnoticed, because it's a clear sign of the arrogance that's always been bestowed upon the Democratic Party when it comes to people like us.
But Reverend Dr. Yuri, I think if we don't say something now about this, where do we go from here?
Well, two things. One, Do the Right Thing is a Spike Lee movie. It is not a political philosophy. That's number one. So the question becomes, what is in our self-interest? Because what I often have to replay very often, I mean, almost all the time, is Reverend's voice in my head that says you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And if we don't put ourselves in a negotiating position with the time that's left, Do the Right Thing is going to leave the White House at 12 noon on Monday, January 20th, Martin Luther King holiday. And then you got to start the process over with a group that is so disconnected from the historical context of why we're making these demands as to not give a good care. They're going to do what they're going to do. And if it happens to lead to some benefit for Black and brown folk, all right, fine. But that's not the objective. And so the question for us that we have to wrestle with is, number one, what do we want? And number two, how we going to get it? Because we on the clock. And there are a few things that we have to make sure, and it's not just an ask, it's an agenda. Yes, we want pardons. That's part of it. Yes, we want the appointment. Fill every vacant federal judge seat, particularly on the U.S. District Court. Those are the trial judges who hear the cases. That's why that's critical. The appellate court is important because they determine what's going to get in front of this Supreme Court that is intentional about rolling back civil rights law at the federal level. And that's not new. The unraveling of federal law enforcement for Black interests started the minute the Civil War ended, when the Reconstruction Act went into effect, when the Civil Rights Act of 1866 was signed. There has been a concerted effort to try to undo this notion of equality for Black people in America. It's not changed. And so the most important thing that anybody who's playing Monopoly can do is not pick which piece you gonna play with, who gonna get the shoe, who gonna get the cannon. No, nobody wants the thimble because they don't know what it is or what it does. Some folk want the dog, the cat, whatever. Doesn't matter what piece you have. If you just gonna sit down and roll the dice and move around and hope you get, a get out of jail free card if you land on chance, or get some help with your light bill if you land on community chest, and you skip through Park Place and Boardwalk because you ain't trying to get caught with your black behind in the wrong neighborhood. If we've not studied the rules, what Joe Biden did is he understood the rules
Yeah.
and he used the rules to his benefit. Do we like it? No. But what are we going to do to change the rules? Because sitting and just saying who he's wrong, but it's done. How do we use this argument to make sure we get something that we want, we demand, not what we deserve, we're demanding it. Negotiation is about making a demand and getting a response, not trying to get somebody to give you some charity because it's the right thing to do. We're not going anywhere. We're going to be here for these last 50 days. And oh, by the way, in case somebody thought that at 12:01 magically Black folk are going to vanish and we're not going to be in the face of a Republican president with a Republican Senate and a Republican House, we're not going anywhere either. So we're going to hold Lottie Dottie and everybody accountable. And we're going to start with the president who's still on the clock. He's the president today. He'll be the president up until 11:59 a.m. on January the 20th, 2025. We need to make sure that we're not just getting platitudes and niceties, we're getting deliverables in the ongoing quest for justice, not just for Black people, because as Reverend often tells us, there's never been a justice outcome for Black people that didn't benefit all people. We get to claim it for ourselves, let everybody else figure out where they fit in.
Well, and I think that's why I want us to use these this next month and a half wisely. I mean, because many of us are still licking our wounds, Reverend Dr. Yeary, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, about November 5th. There is still work to be done up until January 20th and through January 20th, because we're going to have to negotiate with Trump. And we can do it. We can push people so that we can get what we need. Look, you can say what you will. The First Step Act did help. Getting the HBCU office back in the White House did help. That happened on his watch because some of us pushed for that. I'm saying right now, Reverend Dr. Yeary, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, and as a community psychologist, you are a minister of one of the most prominent churches in the country. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, you are a community psychologist. You know, when they presented the Brown versus Board of Education case before the Supreme Court, they brought in the psychologist. They said, wait a minute, the impact upon Black children, this is deleterious. It's so negative. We need to make this case, Reverend Dr. Yeary and Dr. LaShawn Latrice, right now. This was a bomb that was dropped in our community. It has had a devastating effect upon our families. Devastating. And yet our people are still languishing in jail, and we're not even talking about that. We're talking about this. Robert Williams said, you got that right, Todd Yeary. Jules said, right on. All right, that's right. All right. And Carol, wait a minute. Carol Soskin said, the Democrats better get moving. something needs to happen here, Reverend Doctor. Excuse me. You gotta, girl, take off that mute, that microphone. What has been the impact as you see it?
So the impact that I see is we're still having enormous amounts of trauma impacted on our communities, and those people who have loved ones behind the walls, siblings, fathers, mothers, mothers who have sons and daughters behind the walls. We're watching some injustices take place on a regular basis, and what's happening is they want us to become used to seeing those things like that because the system is not broken. It's designed to work exactly how it's working. But at the end of the day, we know when an injustice happens, we're there. We're usually a part of that whole process. Many people kind of turn a blind eye to it if they're not impacted directly. A lot of times they don't know the traumas associated with it. But people know when you're incarcerated, your entire family is incarcerated. Your children are incarcerated, your spouses, your parents, everybody's going through that cycle of incarceration with you. So the trauma never stops. It's almost like a continuous flow of those things that are impacting you. And then you go to those places and people come visit you and they see what's happening there, or they hear your stories. And then they go back to the communities and they see what's happening in the communities. And what does happen when some of the people are released is they're not even supported. And so the nerve, when you come out of incarceration, now you're getting shunned for a job. You can't get this type of job. You can't get that type of job. You can't live in a certain place that you might be able to barely afford to live in. Those conditions are even worse than the cycle of incarceration. But that stigma that's associated with it, that's why I say, people say, oh, he's a convicted felon. But remember, calling Donald Trump a convicted felon was what got him those additional votes, because all those felons who felt like people were shunning them and pointing at them and labeling them and stereotyping them, they gravitated over to that man and they voted for him. And at the end of the day, I want people to know, when you see these situations, there are some long-term traumatic effects of incarceration. Everything from how you might ride the bus or drive your car, all those things about claustrophobia. People never think about that. And we're not even going to talk about the people in there who are in solitary confinement. That's a whole nother level. But when we think about it, we need to understand that when you talk about a person in solitary confinement, we have people that we have been trying to get out of solitary confinement who've been in there over 20 years. That's why when T.O. was talking about Jeff Ford, Larry Hoover, think about all of these people who are even been deemed as political prisoners, or they've tried to turn them into monsters. And they say they deserve to be in this one room for 24 hours, 23 hours a day, and they come out 1 hour. That's insane. There's no way you could think someone can come out of that and not be mentally impacted.
Even the people my brother.
Who probably was sent there because he tried to help someone, because everyone knows
teaching classes.
That's right.
In Department of Justice under Eric.
You can't be a do-gooder behind the walls.
This is what happened. They had shown, they made it. They issued some kind of order that enabled you to appeal to the Department of Justice so that you could be released. Reverend Dr. Uri, as a lawyer, you would understand that. Jesse, as a trained lawyer, saw a flaw. He said, no. You've got to write it this way. And he would hold classes. He said, don't write it this way. Write it this way. Because if you make a mistake about anything, about your case, they're going to label you a liar and your case is going to be thrown out. Yeah. And he was helping people with appeals and all kinds of things. He did all of that. And one day they pulled him out of bed. And my brother is on serious medication for bipolar disorder and asthma, things like that. They put him in the hole, and his cellmates were trying to find out, where is he? Because they pulled him out in the middle of the night. And he said, and it took them a couple of days to reach out to reach our family, because they said, look, we haven't seen him. Somebody needs to get down here. We know you all come here on the weekends. We don't have that long. We haven't seen him in 2 days.
Wow.
Oh, no. It was very clear that when he got to prison that they were trying to break him. That is why they put him in there. Because my brother was in line to become the head of a very, very big committee. And he'd also been told that because he's the first co-chair of a presidential campaign in the history of the country to go to prison. He had been promised the Senate seat. They lied to him. So when I look at him now and I see him struggling, and people have seen him in social media struggling, I'm like, I know something happened, and it breaks my heart. But I'm not making the case for just for my family. I'm not even. We're going to be fine. The Lord continues to bless us. He's about to get his doctorate in theology, in master in divinity. He's preaching. I think this is the path he should have been on anyway. My concern are the thousands of people whose families didn't make it, Reverend Dr. Yeri, whose families were so disturbed, whose families were not strong enough to take the hit. My family could take that. We've taken some hits because we are a strong family. We're a family, and we are strong. I'm looking at these thousands of people who were incarcerated. The key was just thrown away. And Reverend Dr. Yeri and Dr. LaShawn Latrice, that's not right. I mean, I'm saying I don't want to participate in that discussion and that debate about what happens with January 6th, what happens with Hunter, this, that, and the third. I'm tired of that. I want to know what's happened to all these people who are languishing in jail now on low-level drug offenses, or what should be low-level drug offenses. Right. And they can't get educated. They can't do anything but sit there and rot. What are we going to do about that?
Well, there are a few things. One, to Dr. Latrice's point, when we return formerly incarcerated persons back to communities that have been devastated to the degree that they look like war zones, what you're doing is you're substituting one form of trauma for another. And so it's not enough to get them out. We have to be committed to making them whole.
Okay.
And that means we have to send them back to places where there hasn't been the intentional undermining and devastation of the very communities that produced the Black genius that we now lock up. We have to make sure that we make those demands. Why? Because this is still a system by design. The only reason we're having a conversation about an alternative path that leads to different outcomes that are more just for our community is because we've had to demand them over time. This is not some great awakening that somehow or other, either party, Democrat or Republican, the precursor to the Republicans, the Whigs, who couldn't really sustain anything. And so you get an Abraham Lincoln who writes in his whole Gettysburg Address that the reason he is taking the extreme effort of freeing those who are held enslaved in the rebel territories, there had already been a secession from the Union, is he said it was out of military necessity. They were about to tear the fabric of the country away and leave the very young United States of America vulnerable to being recolonized. And so in order to save that independence, Black folk had to sign up to serve in the military when they had been precluded. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, they didn't allow it to apply to Black people because they were afraid that Black people might do to white people what white people were doing to them. And so we got to have these honest conversations. This is not a kumbaya moment. This is really what we would call in the church, this come to Jesus moment. This is a, what are we going to do to make the demand? And we're not asking permission. We're not asking folks what they think. Joe Biden didn't call anybody that's been on this panel, that's going to view this video. He ain't call nobody ahead of time and ask them, what do you think?
No, we didn't.
He knew he had the power and he used it. Now that we know he's got the power and he knows how to use it, what are we going to demand of him that requires the use of that power that's going to benefit the people who helped put him in that power? Because if it had not been for Black black faces in voting spaces
Mhm.
going back 4 years ago, he would have been another failed candidate for president who had high aspirations but limited capacity. And so now, all right, bruh, now that you're there and we know who got you there, let's figure out what you're going to do with the time that's got left. And we're not going to take no for an answer.
So, what do we need to do moving forward? And let me say hey to Michael Keith in Uptown Manhattan, up in Harlem. I love it. You know me. Linux Terrace is in the house. Love you, Michael. Thank you. Like and share, like and share. That's my home. I'm part New York. I always will be. I love you, love you, love you, and thank you. Head on over to Silly's and Melba's, my two spots up there in New York. You know, love it. Oh, I love Sylvia's and my girl Melba. I'm so proud of her. Miss Sylvia's niece who opened up a restaurant is perhaps the hottest black restaurant in New York. I'm so proud of her. I don't know what to do. Sending you so much love. But I mean, so what does this look like in the next 50 days? Because many of us cannot imagine this, Reverend Dr. Yuri, Dr. Latrice. We don't know what to do because we're still licking our wounds. I can't say that enough. About from November 5th. Many of us we've not moved past that.
Our feelings were hurt, right? Let's just be honest about it. We're not injured because they didn't elect Kamala. Our feelings are hurt. They've been kicking us in the behind since we've had behinds to kick. So this ain't new. This is just the next thing in that line. All right, so we have confession. Wipe your tears, get your butt up off the floor,
Right.
and let's get back to it. And as Brother Michael said when he checked in, I think he said happy Cyber Monday, right? It
Yeah.
is Cyber Monday. We can do a lot of stuff electronically. You can text your elected officials, you can send them emails, you can put your demand in writing. We need to bombard the system till the system shuts down. It needs to happen just like Netflix found out. Mike Tyson comes back to fight at 58 years old. We the same age. Guess what I'm not doing? I'm not going to get so nostalgic that I'm going to put some gloves on and think I'm going to get back in the ring. But he trains, he gets back in the ring. And here was the thing that's really important. I don't want to miss it. I'm not getting in the ring, but here's where Mike Tyson won, and we can learn something from it. Everybody wanted to see him come back so bad until they believed that the 58-year-old former champion would win. And when he did not win the fight, our feelings were hurt. Except we missed what the win was. The win was in showing up. When he walked out to a full arena of
Yes.
folks there to see him, it did not matter. If we show up
Mm.
in these next 50 days, if we show up, we may not win the fight, but we're going to win some rounds. And if we can win some rounds this time, we don't have as much to fight for the next time. That's all I'm saying. Our feelings are hurt. Let's admit it. Our feelings are hurt. We thought America was going to accept, we had Barack, we were looking for Kamala, we were getting ready. And look, holding up the hotel rates in DC for January 20th, the bottom fell out the day after the election, because everybody had booked up rooms going to see this thing that they had never seen before. Well, now that it's not happening, they're like, look, we know what the sequel of this movie is going to look like. We don't have to sign up for it, but we got to be ready to fight. If we do not show up, if we don't register now, if we don't show up to school board meetings now, if we don't show up to city council meetings now, if we don't vote in local elections now, this election came down to the margins. We knew it would. And what we found out was white liberalism is always ready to betray our interests. Not a new thing. Dr. King, in his letter from Birmingham jail, when he talked about why the preachers were asking why he was in Birmingham, his response was clear. It's not why am I here? It's why are you not here? Why have you not shown up? And so it's time to show up. Send an email to the White House. Look, you don't have to agree with Biden about whether or not about why he pardoned his son. It's done. But now that we know he has the power to pardon, we want him to use it. Now that we know he has the power to do executive actions, we want him to do it. Even if Trump is going to undo them 2 minutes into his administration, doesn't even matter. We've got to continue to make progress. The only reason there was a Brown versus Board of Education to even talk about this many years later, 70 years later,
Mm.
is because you had 5 cases that were consolidated into one under the rubric known as Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas. One of those 5 was a lawsuit filed by students in DC. Never gets a whole lot of study or credit, but even the students showed up. If we're not willing to show up in this, if you're not offended to the degree you mad about, why he pardoned Hunter, well, if you're not mad enough to make him do for you and to keep showing up, then you ain't mad about why he pardoned Hunter. Your feelings just hurt. And at the end of the day, hurt feelings don't bring justice.
That's right.
Movements do.
No, it does. I mean, and that's what I mean. We are in our feelings
Yeah.
and helping us to understand, because that's why I brought this up today, because when I looked and saw what they had done with education, Reverend Dr. Geary and Dr. Latrice, that this bill that Joe Biden purposefully gutted access to education for poor people who've been incarcerated. Wait, his son went to Yale.
Hmm.
And I'm not mad about that. He saw a son in trouble and he did what any parent should do, try to save him. Okay? Now, no one's getting into all the business interests that, are kind of interesting, given the fact that he's in Ukraine and we're over there fighting for the oligarchs. Well, okay, y'all ain't asked the question. When I would ask it, you got angry with me. Okay, I got you. I can deal with that. What is bothering me and what I'm hoping, no, it's not, no. What I don't want us to do, my father said slavery, well, that's an awful thing. The worst thing you can do is adjust to it. And when you're saying to us, when you're talking about the impact upon the community, Dr. Latrice, when you're saying, Reverend Dr. Uri, hey, wait a minute. This is power, everybody. So get out of your hurt feelings. They don't change. Nobody cares about your feelings. Do you think they're saying, the New York Times just said, that he had contemplated this decision for months? That is absolutely untrue. If the political winds had shifted in another direction, that meant he had more time.
Yeah.
The fact is, he was always going to save his son. All I'm saying is, I need to be saved.
Mm.
Now, wait a minute. Hey, the only reason you all your life you wanted to be in the White House, well, you know what? I got you there. Because everybody else was telling you to get out the race. But a black congressman said, you know what? He's going to be our friend. And we listened. Okay? Now, I need him to do some things for me. And what Carol said, I'm sure Jill had a lot to do with it. Yeah. And you know what? Whatever it was, he responded to the power and he didn't care what we thought, what we felt. This is not about our feelings. Reverend Dr. You're right. That's not what this is about. This is about, what are we going to do in the next 50 days or so? What are we going to do? We've got people languishing in prison right now, Reverend Dr. Uri. That's all I'm saying. They need a pardon. They didn't rush the Capitol. These people have been locked out of jobs. The schools are not working for them. They tried to figure it out the best way they knew how. I'm not saying that you should be a drug dealer, but I'm saying for some of us, we've just been locked out of everything. And that's it. Okay, so I get it. Don't you talk to me when I look at the mafia and how closely they work with our government on all kinds of things. Don't even try it. Don't even try it.
Which one is the mafia?
No. What did you just say? Which one is the mafia? Okay. Now, if I get thrown off the air because of what you just said,
all I did was ask a question. I think my audio kind of faded when you said something, so I was just asking to follow.
Well, no, Jewel just said marvelous point. But what you said, why'd you ask that question? Because that is a heck of a question, Reverend Dr. Uri.
Well, one, you have a military industrial complex budget of nearly $1 trillion every year. So extensive that even when they don't ask for money, they get more money. And that military is used to reinforce a certain power dynamic and differential around the world, particularly in places where there are certain folks who look certain ways. There's a reason why when they colonized the continent, the United States was the arbiter of disputes between European powers. There were two rules that you had to abide by to establish your right to claim a territory. One, you had to have a demonstrated economic interest. And the second thing is you had to demonstrate that you had the military capability to defend that economic interest. So at the end of the day, let's be clear that the reason there's $1 trillion military budget is not because we're afraid of some conventional war where we do the little green army men in the bags and lay them out on the floor. That's not the fight that's coming. It is to reinforce economic relations to protect the United States dollar over and against the gold standard, because the largest holder by a single nation of gold in the world is the United States of America. Let's be real clear on what this is. The reason you have mass incarceration is the 13th Amendment is clear. Slavery is legal when it's tied to punishment for crime. Therefore, I can get free labor to be able to do something like Alabama found out when 70% of its revenue after the Civil War was on convict lease labor. So let's not somehow decide that because they taking history out of schools and they don't want an AP African American history exam for other folk to take. Look, that's for them not to take. We should at least know it and understand how we got here, and we should not forget it. If we're going to pretend that all we can do is emotionally appeal to the goodwill of neoliberalism in 2024, that hustle ain't working. Everybody's going for self-interest now. That's what the whole MAGA movement is. Make America Great is code word for a certain type of self-interest over and against other self-interest. And if we don't have ours in the midst of the discussion, then guess what? At the end of this next 4 years, there will be almost another $20 trillion that will be spent to support somebody else's self-interest. And they don't care if it means that there's a bill being passed on to the next generation, that they got to figure out how do we deal with the looming debt crisis. I've not seen not one time that the debt crisis ever caused elites. When we talk about elites, I'm not talking about high-minded folk who think that they got something. I'm talking about the 1% of folk who control 50% of the wealth in this country. They never stop to ask, are you going to be able to balance the budget for me to get what I want? So these convoluted arguments that we're making, what Donald Trump is showing you and Joe Biden just confirmed, is that when you have the power, you can do what you want. Opinions be damned. Don't nobody care what you think. So while you're getting hung up, get over yourself. You better figure out what you're going to get, because everybody he's appointing has nothing to do with qualifications, has nothing to do with background. It has to do with you protect the self-interest of the folks that I got elected to protect. And it ain't, listen to me, it ain't for the handful of frustrated, disaffected folks who decided that they were going to vote Republican this time. The ruse that's been on is that poor blacks and poor whites, all of them suffering. Poverty is a condition, it's not a race. And so now we keep going back to fighting this issue like somehow or other the government has something against us. It's not nothing against us. They're just trying to make sure that the same hustle that started in 1776, when you had to be a landowning white male to be able to participate in this process, the name of the game is to use the government to protect wealthy interests. That's why you have Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy coming to check on government efficiency, because they got to free up some money to further the interests of the elites. You better get your piece. At the end of the time, don't be the last person to show up in the kitchen after Thanksgiving dinner thinking you're going to get a slice of that sweet potato pie that you've been longing. If you didn't get your cut when it was time, that ain't my fault. Like, oh, you ate the last piece. Oh, you were waiting on that last piece. I'm so sad that you didn't get that last piece, but it sure was good.
Well, I mean, and I think, and to your point, it's a brilliant point, because this is really about the power that they seize and that they are willing to use. Don't get mad at anybody. Understand that the Black leadership that we have, the indigenous leadership that we have, the Latino leadership that we have that comes from the people, they're your lobbyists. They're the ones who are making the case for you. Your preachers, the freest, richest Black person in America is still the Black preacher. Because we pay them, and only we pay them, to do our bidding. And the good news for everybody is that what has benefited Black people has lifted America and made it more what America's supposed to be. It's made it democratic. It's strengthened the republic. That is what we do. But now what we have to understand is politics. We have been in presidential politics, Reverend Dr. Yuri, Dr. Latrice, for 40 years. That's it. We've only had the vote, not even 60 years. It's been 59 years. The first time we really got into presidential politics was when Reverend ran. Oh, absolutely. Shirley Chisholm pushed in the door. Reverend kicked it down. We had Black Republicans for Jesse Jackson. Armstrong Williams headed that up because it was a door that he opened. Did they let him in the room after he opened the door? No, they slammed it in his face, but that's all right. He said, I'm not worried about that. The door has to be open. That's where we are. So, I mean, but this is not about our feelings, y'all. This is about what are we going to do over the next few days. If you care about the incarcerated, if you care about having some people just sit up in jail, in prison, so they can be unpaid labor, not free labor, unpaid labor. They're not free. It's not free. It's unpaid. That's something that ought to be offensive to you. And while we have this moment, because Kamala was not a gift to us, we earned that. Now, while he has nothing to lose, he is willing to spend his legacy to save his child. Well, you know what? He needs to put some of that capital on me. And we need to demand it, Reverend Dr. Yuri, Dr. LaShawn Latrice. I'm tired of seeing us languish and seeing all of this genius. Somebody who has a cure for cancer is up in there. Somebody who has sung a song that we haven't heard. Someone who has a sermon inside of them. Somebody in there can save the rest of us. And we have an obligation to go for them. We have an obligation to at least put on the record voting rights, an executive order on that. We need put it on the record what we need for our health care. It's still the number one driver of bankruptcies in America. Our health care costs, even when you got great insurance, you can end up with a 6-figure bill. Come on. We have to figure out what it is that we need, Reverend Dr. Yuri, in these last 50 days or so, and push. And be unabashed. Because like you said, Reverend Dr. Yuri, he did not consult with us for anything. He just said, look, I got some business to take care of before I get out of here. And no, I'm gonna take care of my son. He's gonna take care of the people who put him in there. He's gonna do that. And you know what? Since we put him in there for real, we need to come up with something. And we've got some agenda items before we go, as we go. Dr. Latrice, what do you want to see done in these last 50 days or so?
I would like to see a uniting of us, people, real people like us who are impacted, community people who have voices, people who represent organizations that are on the grassroots doing the work. I would like to see us unite and come together and let's put a call out to help those people who have been trying to get pardoned for years. But we must not forget, as Reverend Dr. Yuri said, you pointed out that we need to pay attention to the judges and the state reps and a lot of those people down the ballots. When we talk about just the president by itself, it's almost like we're giving them a pass. They don't get a pass because guess what? The same corrupt system of incarceration is derived from the same corrupt criminal justice system.
Absolutely.
Which means that the judges, those people that are working in those capacities, making those backroom deals, they're doing what they want to do to make the system work for them and against us. If we don't acknowledge that, we can never move forward in a positive way to be effective. So I think if we're really wanting to help people, let's educate people. Let's tell people, hey, do your research on those people who you're letting judge these people when you go to these legislative processes. I think a lot of our Democratic Party has failed us. And I think that because we're not, they're not calling each other out, and those of them who know what's going on are not acknowledging it, I think that we're just becoming more and more victimized by them. And so just an extreme acknowledgement. I don't want it to get to the point where everybody has to experience incarceration in order to have a heart to fight against it. We should be fighting against it no matter what. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. So that's what I want to see happen.
Indeed, because we can see that the incarceration really is about unpaid labor.
Money. Power.
Money that these people do
it's
not
unreal.
have. Oh,
it's unreal. I told them, Santita, about the Unicorp people, those people who work those jobs inside the prison. And the Unicorp, that's this good job inside the prison, but it's plagued with asbestos. The government is having the inmates make all these products that they sell back to themselves. So that's double and triple dipping. And then we're going to have you get $200 a month. So that's big money, inside a prison. That's big money. We're going to have you get that. But what about the guys who they're shipping out of the state prisons to go work on these farms? And they're making these people private businesses. They're making these people millions and millions of dollars, and they're getting paid 16 and 17 cents an hour like I was. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge that this is a compilation of racism. It's all over the place, and there's no way you cannot look at it and see it for what it is. That's why one person can be tried for something, and because they're black or brown, they're going to get the book thrown at them. And then the other person, they're just a victim of their circumstances, so we're going to get them probation. That's real.
Reverend Dr. Uri, your closing thought, your marching orders.
So I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Let me give you your marching order this way. So I went to go visit my brother and my sister-in-law. We had a wonderful dinner. We get to hang out every year. After dinner was over, you know how you do. You got to get a second bite, second round. So I opened the refrigerator and looked in the bottom, and lo and behold, up under the lemon pie was a pan with some aluminum foil on it. And it was kind of heavy. I took it out, I removed the foil, and I discovered there was a sweet potato pie in the bottom of the refrigerator up under the lemon pie. Joe Biden just showed us that if we look in this refrigerator, in the bottom of the refrigerator up under that lemon pie is a sweet potato pie. And it ain't all gone yet. We got about 50 days left. And all I want you to do is to ask Joe, can I get a piece of that? Because if he cutting out slices of sweet potato pie, today it was Hunter. Tomorrow it's going to be somebody else. He's going to keep passing out favors until his administration is done. If all we want to complain about is that nobody told us there was a sweet potato pie in the bottom of the refrigerator, you going to be mad because these folk going to eat all that pie and they not going to care what you got to say. Better get you a piece. I'm gonna ask for a piece of that pie. That pie look like it is good.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna check it out.
Lord,
that's all I got.
Mercy help us. But you know what? That's the perfect analogy. Hey, Laura, it's been a long time. Love you, girl. It's good to see you. Jewel, everybody, sending y'all so much love. Think about this, everybody. Please share the show and start thinking about what it is that we need. Sometimes you get who you want. Sometimes you don't get who you want. But always you must get what you need. Always, 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 always. So where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Don't start with dessert, everybody. Start with the meal. There's some things that we need. and we need to get them, and we need to demand them, and you need to think enough of yourself to make a demand about what it is that you need. You are somebody. You are God's child, and nobody's going to save us for us but us. Let's do it. I love you, everybody. Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I love you, love you, love you. I love you, morning stars in the evening.
Love you guys.
Oh, may God bless you real good. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, the Santita Jackson Show. Love you.